Today, the Gladiator gets new shoes. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Adventure 207. We're here with the second installment of our Gladiator build. Now, this is our new midweek series, which is running every Wednesday with new videos coming out at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, where we take a bone stock SCX24 Gladiator and we modify it little by little every week over the course of 7 weeks to see just how much we can push the performance of this thing with each mod. Now, last week we did our stage 1. We set all of our baseline metrics as far as weight bias, and performance on the indoor course, as well as an RTI ramp score. And then we did some free modifications, stuff that you can do with just some basic tools and maybe a little bit of basic hardware to improve the performance without actually having to buy any aftermarket parts. Now, primarily, we were trying to shed weight off the rear of the truck. We pulled out the interior pan, and we got rid of that whole rear cage overlanding setup. Now, we ended up shedding quite a bit of weight overall, but most importantly, we balanced out our weight biases. We went from a 51% left side weight to a 50-50 left-right bias, but most importantly, we went from a 55% rear bias to a 50-50 front rear bias. Now, this week for stage 2, we're going to go ahead and we're going to really crank up the performance on this rig. We're going to improve traction and we're going to lower our center of gravity. And we're going to do it with a pretty badass set of tires and wheels. So let's get into it. So for stage 2, we've got a new tire and wheel package for this thing. We've got these Treal brass beadlocks. These things are 100% brass. And let me tell you, they are heavy. Now, to wrap around those, we've got something I'm super excited about. We've got the brand new from LGRP 57mm Swamp Kings. If you've ever run their OG Swamp Kings, you know that they are an amazing tire. By far one of the best tires on the market, and certainly the best tire that I've ever tried. But you also know that 64mm diameter really limits the amount of rigs that you can mount them on without having to make major body modifications. These new ones are a 57mm diameter, making them fit your stock SCX24 bodies much better. And I think these are going to look awesome on that Gladiator with maybe a little bit of fender trimming. Alright, so for starters, digging right into the package, you get your bag of hardware that you get with all of these Treal wheels so you can bolt your hubs in. But what I noticed right away is these wheels don't appear to come with the optional set of wider hubs that most of the new Treal beadlocks are coming with. Not a big deal. I wasn't planning on running them on this truck anyways. But I mean, these wheels are just awesome. Even your hub is brass. You've got that brass lock ring, which always has the Treal logo on it. And I mean, these things just look really cool in that black with the machine faces inside the holes there. Can't wait to get these mounted up and bolted onto the truck. Now, as for the new 57mm Swamp Kings, every bit as awesome looking as the full-size Swamp Kings, but in a much more compact package. Compound, same thing we're all used to from LGRP. Not super sticky, but if these are anything like their big brother, that's not going to matter. Now, normally, I run most of my tires with no foams. That just seems to be the way I get the best performance out of most of my tires. However, there are a few exceptions to that. There are some that I have mounted up with the stock foams in them. And we're going to go ahead and mount these up with the foams so you can see as a true review of what these tires are out of the package and see what they do for the Gladiator. So I'll go ahead and get these mounted on the wheels. We'll get them bolted on, see what they look like, and then we'll start checking all our specs. Alright guys, so I just want to show you real quick just how easy these tires mount onto these wheels. Now, I don't know what standards LGRP uses when they design their tires, and I don't know what standards Treal uses when they design their wheels. But believe me when I tell you, it is almost as if the beads of these tires were made for the lips of these wheels. So we're going to go ahead, throw our beadlock ring in the center. Make sure we get our direction match to the way we need it to go. Get the tire started down in there. Now hopefully you can see just how well that wheel sits down into that bead. I mean, it's a perfect fit. This is probably the easiest time I've ever had mounting a set of tires and wheels, and I think we all know how fiddly some of these 1.0s can be. Do the same thing on the back. We'll just start getting that wheel fitted down inside the tire. Get the beads seated where it needs to be. Get the holes to line up a little bit better. Now we can just start our hardware in. And now keep in mind, this is a brass wheel. This whole wheel is brass, and brass is a soft metal. So you want to be careful you don't strip the threads out of any of these holes. You know, that's really all you got to do to tighten these screws up. And now I'm not tightening them down all the way just yet. You want to leave them still a little loose until you get all 6 started. And you should be able to turn those screws in with no more than just your fingers on the stem of your driver. Just like that. If not, go back and loosen up the rest of your screws and try it. And try it again. Might have to try to line it up a couple of times before you get it to where it wants to go in real easy. There we go. And now once you've got all 6 started, just go back and tighten them up. I mean, that's all they need. Just go until you start to feel some good resistance in your fingers. And if you're concerned about them backing out, it's not a bad idea to throw just a tiny bit of blue Loctite on there. I know a lot of people do. Personally, I've never had a problem with any hardware backing out of my metal parts, but like I said, it's certainly not a bad idea to just go ahead and throw some Loctite on there. Now once you got the wheels assembled, you can go ahead and just put the rest of your hub hardware in there. Now I've found doing the other 3 that these hubs are seated in there perfectly, so it's alright if you go ahead and just tighten these ones up as you put them in. I mean, honestly, it does not get much easier than this when it comes to mounting 1.0 tires and wheels. And as usual with Treal stuff, you've got some hardware left over. But I mean, that just makes for an awesome looking tire and wheel package. So let's go ahead and get them bolted on the Gladiator and see what they look like mounted. Alright, so we've got our new tires and wheels all mounted on the Gladiator. And I mean, they just look awesome. You can see how much bigger these 57mm Swamp Kings are than the stock tires. I mean, there's quite a difference there. So these are going to gain us a slight bit of ground clearance, but primarily the brass wheels have added a lot of weight to this. Very noticeable. If I had to wager a guess, I'd say we're going to be up over 300 grams now. We'll see in just a minute. But these tires are going to give us a load more traction. I mean, just the tread depth alone compared to those Nittos is insane, the difference. Now, the tires do rub the fenders, especially on the front, and of course, especially when turning. So, I'm not going to do anything about that right now, but at some point, though, I am going to go ahead and take the Dremel and kind of hack at these fenders a little bit, get them opened up some, and I'll most likely put together a little video of body trimming for a Sunday upload, so look forward to that. But for now, let's go ahead and check our specs compared to stock. Alright, so just for a quick reminder, our stock weight was 267 grams with a 55% rear bias and a 51% left bias. Stage 1, we dropped our total weight to 224 grams and evened out our front, rear, and left-right biases both to 50-50. So let's see where we're at now. Okay, so these wheels are massively heavy. We have far exceeded 300 grams. We are now at 389 grams on total weight. So we have added 165 grams just in tire and wheel weight compared to stage 1. That is absolutely insane, but that is going to drastically lower our center of gravity and help keep this thing planted when it's on the trails. Now, as far as our biases, we're still right at a 50-50 front rear, and actually, we appear to have tightened it up a little bit. We're now at only a 0.3 gram difference, being just a slight bit heavier in the front. And we're still at our 50-50 left-right bias, but that is actually now a true 50-50 bias with 194.5 on each side. Now, one thing is for sure, all that extra weight on the ends of the driveline is really going to tax that little stock motor. Luckily, we've got an upgrade for that coming very soon. Not sure what stage we're going to throw that into yet. I'll figure that out. It's also really going to put some strain on that stock servo, especially where we haven't gotten rid of the servo saver in this yet. But we've also got an upgrade for that on the way, and that is going to be next week. Now, I have my doubts that a set of tires and wheels is going to change our RTI score, at least not drastically, but we're going to go ahead and test it anyways. Now, stage 1 gave us an RTI score of 2 inches, which was a 1/4 of an inch increase over stock. So we'll see if that stays true now. Yeah, so we're still right at 2 inches as expected. You can't really expect tires and wheels to improve flexibility, obviously. But right away, just pulling it onto the RTI ramp, I can already see how much that motor is not enjoying the weight of these tires and wheels. So we may end up upgrading that sooner rather than later. But for now, we'll get this thing out on the course and we'll see how it does now. Alright, so we'll go ahead and see how our Stage 2 mod of our tires and wheels helps the Gladiator on the indoor course. Now I'm thinking of just how much weight these wheels add. Number one, the motor and servo are probably going to struggle more, but I'm thinking the truck is probably going to do quite a bit better. So yeah, motor and servo definitely struggling a lot more. You've got to have the motor pretty much to full throttle to get it to even want to move. But the good news is electronics upgrades are going to be coming next week in Stage 3. Alright, so line 1 has become a P1. Let's go ahead and try out line 2. and we no longer need to bump it up over that hump. Line 2 has become a P1. So let's go ahead and try line 3. So right away, the truck definitely feels a lot more planted. But that stock little Dynamite 030 motor is definitely putting in all of the effort that she has got to be able to run this thing with these brass wheels. This is always a tricky line, especially for trucks that don't have a lot of flex, but maybe that departure angle can help us here. Yes. And line 3 becomes a P1. Man, we're working right through them quick this time. Let's try line 4. Walks right up over the left side just like it's nothing. Line 4 is still a fail. Go ahead and try line 5 now. That little motor is definitely screaming to be put out of its misery. And that first step is still very difficult to make, even for this diameter tire. And the biggest problem we're having now is the motor just does not have enough power to be able to crawl it. Just like that. We have officially made history here. Only on stage 2 of modifications with this Gladiator, and it has officially become only the second truck to ever make that line. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I am thoroughly impressed with the performance of this thing at the stage we're at, and I cannot wait to see what it does next week when we get that new 050 size brushed motor in there and the new Metal Gear servo. Alright, so those Treal brass beadlocks and those LGRP 57mm Swamp Kings made a massive difference in the performance of this Gladiator. I honestly did not expect that big of a performance gain out of just those tires and wheels. Lines 1, 2, and 3 weren't really a surprise. Wasn't sure if it was going to be able to do them in the first attempt. Kind of figured we'd get maybe 2 to 3. Had no idea that that thing would walk right up over line 5 once we got past that first initial step. I mean, I'm still flabbergasted at that. Like I said, that is only the second truck I've ever had that's been able to get up over that. The first one being my old deadbolt that has now become my Dodge Hardbody, and that had a lot of mods in it, a lot of weight down low, FuriTech Komodo, high clearance links, you name it, it had it. A lot of those parts are now in my dual battery Jeep Trail truck. So I would say that stage 2 was way more successful than I had ever expected. And I really look forward to next week when we give that thing a new motor and a new servo to increase our power, throttle response, crawlability, and we'll see how much that changes. I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of a difference as far as overall performance, but drivability should definitely be increased. So now just to recap where we are versus where we started. Bone stock, this thing could not do any of the 5 lines within 5 attempts. All 5 of them were fails. We had an RTI score of 1 3/4 inches. We weighed 267 grams with a horrible 55% rear bias. Stage 1, we did some free mods, took some weight off, changed the shock location to get a little bit better flex, and we actually increased our RTI score by 1/4 inch. We shed a total of 43 grams and evened out our weight biases to a pretty near perfect 50-50 front rear as well as left right. And all of that translated into a pass in 4 attempts on line 1 and a pass in 2 attempts on line 2. Still just could not quite get over that last section of line 3. Stood no chance at lines 4 and 5. This week, we threw those Treal brass wheels on with the new 57mm Swamp Kings. Massive improvement. We gained a boatload of weight. We're now at 389 grams. Still 50s across the board. Perfectly balanced weight-wise. But now lines 1, 2, 3, and 5, we were able to pass on the first attempt. Now, it's going to be interesting to see next week with the more powerful motor and the more powerful servo, just how consistent my driving ability is and how much the improved crawling performance will play into keeping those at P1s, or will things happen and move it back to maybe a P2 or a P3 on a couple of those lines. And I'm really going to be interested to see if we can repeat our results on line 5. So as I said, next week, stage 3, we're increasing our motor size and power, and we're upgrading our steering servo. Stage 4, we're going to start getting into some more expensive mods, and we're going to throw a whole bunch of steering improvements at this thing to try to get a better turning radius, as well as try to move some weight around and see if we can get more of a front weight bias. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss when those videos get posted. And thanks for watching.